Book name: The Power of Consistency, How Focus, Patience, and Daily Discipline Transformed My Life. Index. Chapter 1, Starting Strong, Finishing Weak. The Addict of New Beginnings. Expectations versus reality. The Shame Spiral. The Real Problem. The First Truth. Moving Forward. Chapter 2, The Myth of Overnight Success. The Illusion of Spees. Behind the Scenes. The Hidden Cost of Comparison. Invisible Progress. Redefining the Win. The Second Truth. Chapter 3, The Pattern of Inconsistency. The Comfort of Chaos. Why We Really Quit. The Unseen Damage. The Disrupt Moment. Awareness First. The Third Truth. Chapter 4, The Turning Point. The Lie I Had Been Living. The Conversation That Changed Everything. The Decision to Change. A New Identity. The Fourth Truth. Chapter 5, Building the Discipline Muscle. From emotion to execution. Start small enough to win. Track the chain. Make it frictionless. Stop negotiating. Make discipline who you are. The Fifth Truth. Chapter 6, When Progress Feels Invisible. The Illusion of No Progress. The Dip is Real. Track what you can't see. The Mirror Test. Resisting the Reset. The Sixth Truth. Chapter 7, Breaking the Identity Loop. Your identity. The labels we wear. Be before you become. Disprove the old story. Let it be boring. The Identity Upgrade Formula. The Seventh Truth. Chapter 8, The Power of Systems Over Goals. Why Goals Fail. What is a system? Systems make success inevitable. Build it around your life, not against it. Make it easy to win. Track the process, not the prize. The Eighth Truth. Chapter 9, The Role of Rest and Recovery. The Myth of Nonstop Hustle. Why Rest is Essential. Types of Rest. The Power of Microbreaks. Rest is part of the system. The Ninth Truth. Chapter 10, Staying Consistent When Life Gets Tough. The Reality of Tough Times. Anchor yourself in your why. Adjust without abandoning. Use obstacles as fuel. Build a support system. The 10th Truth. Now, let's listen to all the chapters completely one by one. Chapter 1, Starting Strong, Finishing Weak. There was a time in my life when I believed motivation was all I needed to succeed. Every new project, hobby, or goal sparked a fire in me. I would stay up late researching strategies, buying tools, creating plans. I started everything with energy, hope, and the unshakable belief that this time, things would be different. But they never were. Within a few days, sometimes weeks, that fire dimmed. If I didn't see immediate results, I'd get frustrated. If progress felt slow, I'd question if I was even on the right path. Doubt would creep in, and soon enough, the enthusiasm that once burned bright would turn cold. Another goal abandoned. Another dream postponed. Another version of myself I never became. The addict of new beginnings. I wasn't lazy, I just didn't know how to stay. I chased highs. New beginnings made me feel alive, like I was finally taking control of my life. But finishing, that required patience I didn't have. It demanded discipline I hadn't built. Whether it was a gym membership, an online course, a business idea, or a morning routine, I was a master of initiation, and a stranger to follow through. The shelves of my mind were lined with half-finished efforts and unrealized potential. My life looked like a house built on sand. No strong foundation. Every small storm could wash away what little I'd built. Expectations versus reality. Looking back, I realize I wasn't just inconsistent, I was impatient. I expected too much, too soon. If I didn't lose 5 pounds in a week, the diet must be broken. If my writing didn't get noticed within a month, I must not be talented. If my business didn't make money immediately, it must not be meant for me. I thought results were the proof I was on the right path. But the truth is, results are usually the reward for staying on the path. I didn't know that then. The shame spiral. What made it worse was the guilt that followed. Every time I quit something, I promised myself I'd do better next time. I told myself I just hadn't found the right thing yet. But deep down, I started believing a more dangerous lie. Maybe I'm just not good enough. That belief didn't come all at once. It crept in slowly, quietly. And it stayed. I saw other people sticking to their habits, growing, succeeding. And I couldn't understand why I couldn't do the same. I had dreams. I had goals. I wanted to change. But I couldn't stay committed long enough to see anything through. The problem wasn't my goals. It wasn't my environment. It wasn't even my lack of talent. The real problem was that I had never trained myself to be consistent. I had never learned how to do the work even when I didn't feel like it. I believed that success was about passion. But now I know that passion may start the engine, but only consistency keeps the vehicle moving. This chapter of my life, this phase of always starting and never finishing, wasn't just frustrating. It was painful, because with each abandoned goal, I wasn't just quitting on a task. I was quitting on myself. The first truth. Here's what I wish someone had told me back then. The results you want are always on the other side of doing what you don't feel like doing. That sentence could have saved me years of struggle. But sometimes, the lesson doesn't sink in until you've lived it. And I lived it, over and over, until I couldn't take the disappointment anymore. Moving forward. This book isn't about pretending to be perfect. It's not written by someone who always had it together. This is my story, how I went from being a person who constantly gave up to someone who learned how to stay, how to commit, and how to change his life one small act of consistency at a time. The journey didn't start with a breakthrough. It started with one difficult question. What if the problem isn't the goal, but the way I show up for it? Let's talk about that next. Chapter 2, The Myth of Overnight Success. Have you ever looked at someone else's success and thought, how did they get there so fast? I have. Countless times. I would scroll through social media and see people my age, or younger, launching businesses, publishing books, transforming their bodies, traveling the world. And here I was, still stuck in the cycle of starting and quitting, trying to figure out why I couldn't seem to get it together. What I didn't realize then is that I wasn't seeing their journey. I was only seeing their highlight reel. The illusion of speed. Social media is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it can inspire us. On the other, it can deceive us. We live in a world where everyone shares their wins, but few people share their waiting seasons, their lonely hours, their failed attempts. You see someone with a six-figure business, but you don't see the 5 years of rejection and reinvention behind it. You see someone with a fit body, but you don't see the months of waking up at 5 a.m., the skipped parties, the meals prepped in silence. You see someone releasing a song, a book, a product, and it feels like it came out of nowhere. It didn't. There is no such thing as overnight success. But because we believe there is, we expect our own path to be quick. And when it's not, we quit. Behind the scenes. I once messaged a fitness coach who had completely transformed his body. I told him how frustrated I felt after 2 weeks of working out and eating right. I hadn't seen the scale move. I hadn't felt any different. I was about to give up again. He replied with one line that stuck. With me, you're comparing your 2 weeks to my 2 years. That hit me like a freight train. I was expecting to see in 14 days what he had earned in 730. I wanted rewards without the rhythm, results without the repetition. We expect change to feel dramatic and obvious. But real change is quiet. It sneaks in slowly. One day you wake up and realize your old habits are gone, and new ones have taken their place. But the transformation was happening all along, one tiny, consistent step at a time. The hidden cost of comparison. Comparison doesn't just make us feel like failures, it distorts our expectations. It tells us we're behind. That we're not good enough. That we must be doing something wrong. But here's the truth, there is no standard timeline. Success isn't a race. It's a process. And the people who win are usually the ones who learn how to keep going even when nothing seems to be happening. That's the hard part. Consistency is not sexy. It's boring. It's repetitive. It's getting up early again. Writing another page. Making another call. Showing up even when no one notices. Invisible progress. There were so many moments when I almost gave up simply because I couldn't see any progress. But what I've learned is this. Just because you don't see results doesn't mean nothing is happening. Sometimes the most important progress is the kind you can't measure yet. The mental resilience you build when you don't quit. The muscle memory forming in silence. The character shaping itself in private. Growth is happening, even when it's not obvious. Especially when it's not obvious. Redefining the win. I used to think the win was reaching the goal. Now I know the real win is becoming the kind of person who keeps going, regardless of how far away the goal seems. In that sense, every day I showed up was a victory. Every small, quiet effort was laying bricks in a foundation that would eventually hold something much bigger than I imagined. But I had to stop chasing quick wins and start honoring small wins. The second truth. Let me leave you with this. If you want something that lasts, you have to be willing to do things that don't look like they're working for a long time. That's not what the world tells us. But it's the truth. It's the real secret. Consistency doesn't give you quick success. It gives you deep success. The kind that doesn't fade. The kind that changes you. The kind that becomes who you are. Chapter 3, The Pattern of Inconsistency. Before I could ever change my life, I had to do something uncomfortable. I had to take an honest look at my patterns. I wasn't just unlucky. I wasn't cursed. I wasn't doomed to be mediocre. I was repeating the same behavior over and over again, and expecting a different outcome. This chapter is about uncovering the unconscious loop that so many of us fall into, the pattern of inconsistency, and learning how to interrupt it. The loop we live in. Here's how my cycle used to go, and maybe you'll recognize it in yourself too. 1. Excitement. I'd find a new goal. I'd get excited. I'd convince myself that this time I'd stay committed. 2. Action burst. I'd go all in for a few days or weeks. I'd overdo it, thinking more was better. 3. Frustration. When results didn't match my effort, I'd start doubting everything, the method, myself, the goal. 4. Distraction. I'd find an excuse or a new shiny idea. I'd start looking elsewhere. 5. Quitting. Eventually, I'd stop showing up. But I wouldn't call it quitting. I'd just pause, take a break, shift focus. 6. Shame. The guilt would kick in. I'd feel like a failure. I'd promise myself I'd do better next time. Then, like clockwork, a new goal would show up, and the cycle would begin again. The comfort of chaos. As strange as it sounds, inconsistency became a kind of comfort zone for me. It felt normal, familiar, safe. There was always this strange hope that the next thing would be the answer. That I'd find the perfect system, the perfect time, the perfect idea that would finally make me stay consistent. But what I didn't understand then is that inconsistency wasn't just a behavior, it was a mindset. I was addicted to speed. I craved validation. I feared boredom. And most of all, I had never learned how to be uncomfortable without panicking. Why we really quit. Most people think inconsistency is a motivation problem. It's not. It's a coping problem. When things don't go as planned, most of us don't know how to cope with discomfort. The discomfort of slow progress. The discomfort of not being the best. The discomfort of uncertainty. The discomfort of feeling ordinary. So, we run. We distract ourselves. We start something new. But the pattern follows us because it lives within us. The unseen damage. Inconsistency doesn't just delay success. It damages your belief in yourself. Every time you quit, even silently, you train your brain to doubt you. You reinforce the idea that you're someone who doesn't follow through. And the more often you repeat that cycle, the more difficult it becomes to believe in change. You begin to expect disappointment, even when you begin something new. That's when you know the pattern has taken over. But there's good news. Just like inconsistency is learned, consistency can be learned too. The disrupt moment. For me, the breakthrough didn't come from finding the right routine or the perfect plan. It came from a simple realization. If I don't change the way I respond to slow progress, I'll never make real progress. That one insight disrupted the cycle. It made me pause and reflect instead of react. It helped me see the pattern, not just the symptom. And once you see the pattern, you can break it. Awareness first. You don't need to shame yourself. You need to understand yourself. Inconsistency is often a survival response, not a character flaw. It's the brain's way of protecting you from failure, embarrassment, or emotional pain. But if you want to grow, you have to teach your mind a new response. You have to rewire your identity from, I'm someone who tries things, to, I'm someone who finishes things, even when it's hard. The third truth. Here's what this chapter comes down to. Consistency begins with awareness. Change begins with ownership. You can't control everything, But you can control your pattern. You can start small. You can interrupt the loop. You can become someone new by refusing to repeat the old. Chapter 4, The Turning Point. Rock bottom isn't always a loud crash. Sometimes, it's quiet. It's the slow realization that you're tired of your own excuses. That you've become a stranger to your own potential. For me, the turning point didn't come with fireworks. There was no dramatic breakdown or big failure. It came in the form of silence, one that echoed louder than any shout. I was alone in my room, sitting in front of a half-finished to-do list, surrounded by books I never finished, ideas I never executed, and goals I never reached. And I finally asked the question I'd been avoiding for years. Why'd I keep doing this to myself? The lie I had been living. That night, I saw something I hadn't wanted to see. A pattern, yes, but also a lie I had built my life around. I'll do it when I feel like it. For years, I had treated motivation like fuel. If I had it, I'd move. If I didn't, I'd stop. But that system had failed me over and over again. Because motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. It's based on emotion, and emotion changes with the weather. What I needed wasn't more motivation. I needed a reason, and I needed a system. The conversation that changed everything. That week, I sat down with someone I respected deeply, an old mentor I hadn't seen in years. I told him how lost I felt, how frustrated I was with myself, how tired I was of starting over. He didn't lecture me. He just asked me one simple question. What would your life look like if you simply didn't quit for a year? I didn't have an answer. I had never not quit for that long. I laughed awkwardly and said, I don't know. Probably better than it is now. He smiled and said, exactly. You don't need to fix everything. Just stop giving up on the things that matter. That hit me like a punch to the gut, because I knew it was true. The decision to change. I walked away from that conversation with a new kind of clarity. I wasn't inspired. I wasn't fired up. I didn't feel powerful. I felt ready. Not in the sense of having it all figured out, but in the sense that I was finally willing to try something different. I made a quiet decision that day. No more chasing motivation. No more all or nothing plans. No more starting fresh every month. Just small, consistent action every single day. No matter how I felt. No matter how slow it seemed. That was my new rule, don't quit. Just show up. A new identity. I stopped calling myself inconsistent. I stopped saying things like, I'm just not disciplined, or, I've never been able to stick with anything. Instead, I started telling myself, I am someone who finishes what I start. Even when I didn't believe it yet. Because change doesn't begin with results, it begins with identity. If you see yourself as the kind of person who follows through, your actions will eventually match your belief. But if you always see yourself as a quitter, even your wins will feel temporary. The fourth truth. Here's what I learned at my turning point. The moment you stop negotiating with your excuses, you take your power back. I stopped asking myself if I felt like doing the work. I stopped checking if it was convenient. I stopped overthinking and started acting, slowly, simply, and with deep intention. That was the beginning. And beginnings don't need to be loud. They just need to be true. Chapter 5, Building the Discipline Muscle. When people hear the word discipline, they imagine something cold, strict, even punishing. I used to think that too. But real discipline, the kind that transforms your life, isn't about punishment. It's about freedom. The freedom to become who you truly want to be. Discipline is a muscle. And just like any other muscle, it starts small, it grows slowly, and it gets stronger only when you use it consistently. This chapter is about how I started training mine. From emotion to execution. In the past, I let my emotions decide everything. If I felt excited, I worked. If I felt tired, I quit. If I felt stuck, I switched paths. But feelings are temporary. Discipline is a decision. I had to stop waiting to feel ready and start learning to act anyway. So, I made one rule for myself. Feelings don't decide actions. Commitments do. It wasn't about being robotic. It was about honoring my word, especially when it became inconvenient. Start small enough to win. Here's where most people go wrong. They try to overhaul everything at once. I used to do this too. I'd build a massive to-do list, pack my days with ambitious goals, and burn out by the third day. Then I'd crash, call myself lazy, and start the cycle again. But real change doesn't come from massive bursts of effort. It comes from tiny actions repeated with intention. So instead of asking, how much can I do today? I started asking, what's the smallest action I can do consistently? Examples. Instead of working out for an hour, I did 10 push-ups. Instead of writing a full chapter, I wrote 100 words. Instead of meditating for 30 minutes, I sat in silence for 3. These weren't impressive actions. But they were repeatable. And repeatable wins build real momentum. Track the chain. I borrowed a technique called "don't break the chain," often credited to Jerry Seinfeld. The idea is simple. For every day you do the action, no matter how small, you put an X on a calendar. After a few days, you've got a chain. Your only job is to not break the chain. I used this method to track daily reading, stretching, focused work blocks, sleep goals, water intake. What shocked me wasn't how effective it was, but how motivating it became. I wanted to keep the streak alive. Not for perfection, for progress. One small action a day turned into 2. Then 3. Slowly, I built routines. And eventually, I built trust in myself. Make it frictionless. Discipline isn't just about effort. It's about removing resistance. I stopped trying to rely on willpower. Instead, I redesigned my environment to make the right actions easier. I laid out my workout clothes the night before. I kept my phone out of the bedroom. I deleted apps that distracted me. I left my journal open on my desk. These little tweaks removed the activation energy that used to block me. The fewer decisions I had to make, the more consistent I became. Discipline is easier when the path is smoother. Stop negotiating. Every day, there's a moment when your brain tries to talk you out of the work. It says, you can do it later. One day off won't matter. You're too tired today. I used to listen. Now, I don't even enter the conversation. I treat my commitments like appointments. I don't argue with them. I just show up. Discipline means closing the gap between what you said you'd do and what you actually do. Make discipline who you are. At first, showing up felt like a battle. But over time, it became normal. And eventually, it became who I was. I wasn't faking it anymore. I wasn't forcing it. I was becoming someone new, someone who could be trusted with their own goals. And that, more than anything else, is the true reward of consistency. The quiet confidence of knowing you can count on yourself. The 5th truth. Here's what this chapter taught me. Discipline is not a personality trait. It's a practice. Anyone can build it. But only if they stop trying to feel motivated, and start choosing to act consistently, especially when it's hard. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be persistent. Chapter 6. When progress feels invisible. There's a moment in every journey where doubt creeps in, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you can't see the results yet. That moment is dangerous. It's the part of the process no one talks about, the middle. Not the exciting start. Not the satisfying finish. Just the quiet, frustrating middle, where effort is high, but reward is low. That's when most people quit. That's when I used to quit. But this time, I stayed. And that decision changed everything. The illusion of no progress. I was showing up every day. I was doing the work. I wasn't skipping, I wasn't stalling. And yet, nothing seemed to be changing. No big breakthroughs, no applause, no obvious wins. It was like shouting into a void. But here's what I learned. Progress is often invisible, until it isn't. The seed grows under the soil before it breaks the surface. The ice cube melts in degrees before it becomes water. The results don't show up until after the effort compounds. The dip is real. Seth Godin calls it the dip, that stretch where effort spikes but results flatline. Where everything feels uphill. Where the excitement is gone, but the reward hasn't arrived. Most people hit the dip and assume they're failing. But the dip isn't a sign to quit. It's a sign that you're on the right track. In fact, the presence of struggle often means you're close to a breakthrough, because you've moved beyond comfort and into real growth. The dip is where identity is built. Track what you can't see. When I started feeling like nothing was happening, I had to learn to track something other than results. So, I started measuring. Days I showed up, hours spent focused, distractions I resisted, times I chose action over excuse. These weren't glamorous metrics, but they told the real story. I was becoming someone consistent. And eventually, the outside world caught up with the internal change. But I had to believe it before I saw it. The mirror test. One night, after a long, uneventful day, I looked in the mirror and asked, am I proud of the way I showed up today? Not the outcome, not the results, just the effort. And for the first time in a long time, the answer was yes. That's when I realized, consistency isn't about what you get. It's about who you become. When you stop tying your self-worth to external milestones, you start discovering real freedom. You start doing the work because it matters, not because it's trending. Resisting the reset. In the past, I'd always reset when progress stalled. I'd change the routine. I'd abandon the plan. I'd search for a new hack. But this time, I didn't reset. I repeated. Same action, same process, same rhythm, and slowly, something shifted. I began to crave completion more than novelty. I began to value depth more than speed. I began to trust that the process was working, even when I couldn't see it. That's when I knew I was growing. The sixth truth. This is what Chapter 6 revealed to me. The absence of visible progress is not the absence of progress. It's easy to keep going when things are working. The real test is when they seem like they're not. Success doesn't belong to the most talented or the most excited. It belongs to the ones who don't stop, especially when no one is watching. Because progress, like sunrise, always arrives. But only for those who keep walking through the dark. Chapter 7, Breaking the Identity Loop. Every habit, every decision, every moment of discipline, or the lack of it, flows from one hidden source. Your identity. We often think behavior creates identity. But more often than not, it's the other way around. You don't act inconsistent because you're lazy. You act inconsistent because deep down, you still believe you are. And as long as that belief remains, you'll keep proving it true, no matter how hard you try to change. This is the identity loop. Belief right pointing arrow action right pointing arrow result right pointing arrow reinforced belief. To break free from inconsistency, I didn't just have to change what I did. I had to change who I believed I was. The labels we wear. Throughout life, we collect labels. I'm not a morning person. I'm just not disciplined. I always mess things up. I never finish anything. We don't even question them. We repeat them, joke about them, live by them. But every time we say these things, we're casting a vote for the person we don't want to be. The problem isn't the action. It's the attachment. So, I asked myself, what labels am I carrying that no longer serve me? The answers surprised me, and then empowered me to rewrite them. Be before you become. One of the greatest lies of personal development is, I'll believe in myself once I change. But the truth is, you have to believe before you become. If you want to be consistent, you have to start telling yourself, I am a consistent person. Even when you're not perfect. Even when you miss a day. Even when your old self tries to argue. Every time you show up, even in a small way, you reinforce a new identity. Action is how you cast votes for the type of person you're becoming. And every vote matters. Disprove the old story. I realized that I'd spent years collecting evidence for my flaws. The project I abandoned. The goals I dropped. The promises I broke. I had an archive of failures, but I never kept record of my wins. No wonder my identity was stuck. So, I made a new practice. Each day, I wrote down one thing I did that aligned with the identity I wanted. I followed through on a task. I resisted a distraction. I made a hard decision without quitting. These weren't earth-shattering moments. But they were proof. And proof is powerful. Let it be boring. Here's something I learned the hard way. Consistency is not about excitement. It's about alignment. You don't need to feel like a different person every day. You just need to act like the person you want to become. Even when it's dull. Even when it's inconvenient. Even when no one notices. The goal isn't to impress the world. The goal is to become someone you trust. That trust, over time, becomes identity. And identity becomes destiny. The identity upgrade formula. Here's how I started rebuilding my identity. 1. Define who you want to be. Not, I want to be rich or fit. But, I want to be someone who keeps their word. 2. List the daily behaviors that person would do. They plan their day. They stick to routines. They prioritize long-term wins over short-term comfort. 3. Do one small action a day that aligns. Start small, but be relentless. 4. Track and celebrate the wins. Not the outcome, the integrity. The seventh truth. Here's what this chapter gave me. You don't become consistent by changing what you do. You become consistent by changing what you believe about yourself. Identity is not fixed. It's flexible. And every action you take is a chance to vote for a better version of you. Consistency isn't just about discipline, it's about alignment. When who you are matches how you act, you become unstoppable. Chapter 8. The Power of Systems Over Goals. For most of my life, I lived by goals. Lose 10 kg. Earn more money. Wake up at 5 a.m. Be more productive. Each goal gave me a surge of motivation, for a while. Then I'd burn out, feel behind, or abandon it entirely the moment progress slowed. I thought I had a discipline problem. But what I really had was a system problem. Why goals fail. Here's the hidden problem with goals. They focus on outcomes, not behaviors. They are future-focused, not present-anchored. They assume success as a destination, not a process. So even if I achieved a goal, I didn't know how to maintain it. And if I failed, I felt defeated and gave up. What I needed wasn't more goals. What I needed was a repeatable process. That's where systems come in. What is a system? A system is a structured, repeatable way of showing up consistently, no matter what's happening around you. It turns, I want to write a book, into, I write 30 minutes every morning, before checking my phone. It turns, I want to lose weight, into, I prep meals every Sunday and walk 20 minutes daily. Systems create stability. They shrink the mental effort. They turn progress into a habit, not a hustle. Systems make success inevitable. Here's the key shift I made. I stopped chasing outcomes and started designing processes. Instead of asking, what result do I want? I asked, what actions can I sustain every day? Once I had a system, everything changed. I no longer relied on willpower. I didn't feel lost or overwhelmed. And most importantly, I felt in control. Because a system isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters consistently. Build it around your life, not against it. One reason people abandon systems is because they build unrealistic ones. Waking up at 4:30 a.m. when you're a night owl. Exercising 7 days a week when your body's not used to it. Cutting out all sugar overnight when it's a core comfort. A system should support your current life, and slowly evolve with you. I built mine around my energy patterns better in the morning. My responsibilities, work and family. My triggers and distractions. Instead of resisting reality, I worked with it. Make it easy to win. The best systems don't ask you to be heroic. They just ask you to show up. Here's what I built. Writing system, 500 words before checking notifications. Fitness system, 3 workouts per week plus daily 20-minute walks. Focus system, 90-minute deep work blocks with no social media. Reflection system, end-of-day journaling, 3-5 minutes. Not overwhelming, just repeatable. And here's the magic. The more I followed my system, the less I had to rely on motivation. It became part of who I was. Track the process, not the prize. Most people measure progress by looking at the scoreboard. But true pros measure progress by how well they follow their system. So, I stopped obsessing over how much I weighed, how many followers I had, how many hours I worked. Instead, I asked, did I follow the system today? And that simple question kept me grounded, consistent, and motivated, even when results were slow. The 8th truth. This is what Chapter 8 taught me. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. James Clear. Goals are good for direction. But systems are what get you there, and keep you there. If you want to become consistent, stop chasing outcomes and start building environments, habits, and routines that make progress automatic. Because when the system is strong, success is just a matter of time. Chapter 9, The Role of Rest and Recovery. For years, I thought consistency meant doing more, working harder, pushing through pain, grinding every single day. But the truth hit me hard: rest isn't weakness. It's power. If you want to build unbreakable consistency, you have to learn to rest, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally too. The myth of nonstop hustle. Our culture glorifies relentless hustle, the idea that success means never stopping. I bought into that lie for a long time. I'd push myself until exhaustion, skip breaks, sacrifice sleep, ignore stress. But all it did was burn me out faster, kill my focus, and erode my discipline. The irony: the harder I worked without rest, the less consistent I became. Why rest is essential. Rest helps your brain and body recover and recharge. Without it, focus fades, motivation drops, creativity stalls, stress accumulates. When I finally prioritized rest, everything changed. My energy came back, my clarity returned, my commitment deepened. Because consistency isn't about doing more every day. It's about showing up sustainably over time. Types of rest. Rest isn't just sleep. It's multi-dimensional. Physical rest, sleep, naps, light movement, stretching. Mental rest, breaks from work, unplugging from screens, meditation. Emotional rest, time with loved ones, journaling, emotional processing. Creative rest, exposure to nature, art, new experiences. I learned to schedule all four into my routine. The power of micro-breaks. You don't have to wait until exhaustion to rest. Small breaks throughout the day, 5-minute walks, deep breaths, standing up, help reset focus and prevent burnout. I started using the Pomodoro technique: 25 minutes focused work, 5 minutes rest. It was a game changer. Rest is part of the system. When I built systems for consistency, I included rest as a non-negotiable part. No work on Sundays. Sleep priority, 7 to 8 hours nightly. Daily meditation or quiet time. This shifted my mindset. Rest wasn't a reward after hard work. It was an essential ingredient of success. The ninth truth. The lesson was clear. Consistency is not about never stopping. It's about knowing when and how to rest, so you can show up again, stronger. If you run on empty, you won't run far. Discipline fueled by exhaustion is a house built on sand. Discipline fueled by rest is an unshakable foundation. Chapter 10, Staying Consistent When Life Gets Tough. Life doesn't pause for your goals. Challenges, setbacks, and chaos show up, often uninvited and unannounced. I learned the hard way that consistency isn't about perfect conditions. It's about showing up especially when things get messy. The reality of tough times. In tough seasons, whether it's stress at work, family crises, health issues, or emotional lows, consistency is the first casualty. The mind searches for excuses. I don't have time. I'm too tired. I'll start fresh later. But those excuses build a dangerous pattern of giving up. Anchor yourself in your why. When the going gets tough, clarity of purpose becomes your lifeline. I found that revisiting why I started was crucial. Not the superficial goals, but the deep reasons behind them, like becoming a person I respect, creating freedom for my family, proving to myself I can change. This why grounded me through storms. Adjust without abandoning. Tough times don't mean stop. They mean adapt. Instead of throwing away my system when overwhelmed, I learned to scale down efforts, e.g., 10 minutes instead of 30. Prioritize essentials, what matters most. Be kind to myself, progress over perfection. Consistency isn't an all-or-nothing game. Small actions compound. Use obstacles as fuel. Hardships became motivation, not a reason to quit. Every challenge was a test. Could I show up even when life pushed back? This mindset shift made me stronger, more resilient, and more consistent. Build a support system. I realized I couldn't do it alone. Surrounding myself with people who believed in me, encouraged me, and held me accountable made all the difference. Community creates momentum. The 10th truth. Here's the ultimate lesson. Consistency is not about never falling. It's about rising, again and again, no matter what. Tough times will come. How you respond defines your path. Keep showing up. Keep moving forward. Because real power lies in persistence when it's hardest. The end. Thanks for listening to my book and hope you like it.